You know, you never really expect life to throw you a curveball when you think you've already seen all the pictures. But destiny, I suppose, has a funny way of reminding you that the heart doesn't just retire on a schedule. My name is Evelyn Harper, and I'm 65 years old. For most of my life, I believed love had already given me everything it had to offer. I had a husband, a comfortable home in a quiet suburb of Portland, Oregon, and a life so predictable it felt like a well-worn path. But then, one day, I realized that the silence in my house had become my only real companion. My husband, Robert, passed away 2 years ago. He was a gentle, kind man. After 35 years of marriage, we had become less like two separate people and more like reflections of each other in a still lake. When he was gone, I didn't cry much. It felt like a part of me had simply been turned off, and I didn't know how to find the switch. I just stopped feeling. My daughter, Claire, would call from California every Sunday morning. She'd ask the usual questions. Are you eating well? Mom, sleeping enough? Are you keeping busy? I always said yes, of course. But the truth was, my house had become a museum of our memories. Everything was untouched, quiet, frozen in time. Robert's reading glasses were still on the nightstand. His favorite coffee mug was in the back of the cupboard. It was late one evening, and I was scrolling aimlessly through old photos on my iPad. There were pictures of us at the Oregon coast, at family Thanksgivings, at our anniversary dinner. Then I saw a travel brochure we'd saved for a trip we had always dreamed of taking. Robert had always wanted to go on an African safari. In that quiet moment, with the hum of the refrigerator filling the room, I made a decision that surprised even me. I booked it, not because I was looking for some grand adventure, but because I needed to know if I could still feel alive. When I landed in Kenya, the air itself felt different. It was raw and untamed, honest in a way I wasn't used to. The sun felt brighter, warmer than anything I had seen back home. I remember standing at the baggage carousel, my hands clutching the handle of my worn leather suitcase, when a voice broke through the noise. Need a hand with that, ma'am. I turned, and there he was, Ethan. He was tall and broad-shouldered, with kind eyes the color of dark amber. He had a smile that felt like sunlight breaking through a soft rain. He couldn't have been much older than my daughter, maybe in his early 30s, but his voice carried a calm confidence that was instantly reassuring. He explained he worked as a local guide, helping tourists find their way. At first, it was just polite conversation. He asked where I was staying, what I planned to see, but the way he listened, it wasn't the shallow courtesy people sometimes give older women. He looked at me as if I wasn't invisible, and after years of feeling like a ghost in my own life, that felt like a small miracle. The next morning, I joined the safari group, and to my complete surprise, Ethan was our guide. Good morning, Mrs. Harper. He greeted me with that same disarming smile, ready to meet the wild. I laughed softly, a sound that felt rusty in my own ears. I think the wild's been waiting for me longer than I realized. Throughout the journey, Ethan was attentive without ever being overbearing. He'd point out a herd of elephants moving like gray ghosts in the distance. He'd describe the fluid, powerful way lions move when they hunt. And every so often, he'd glance over at me. It wasn't a look of simple curiosity, but something gentler, something that made my chest ache in the best possible way. One afternoon, the Jeep stopped on a high ridge overlooking the vast plains. The sky was melting into shades of gold and crimson. Ethan came and stood beside me, close enough for me to feel the warmth radiating from his arm. My father used to say, he murmured, his voice low, that sunsets are proof that endings can still be beautiful. I turned to him, the colors of the sky reflected in his eyes. And what about beginnings? He smiled faintly. Those are harder to recognize. Sometimes you don't know you're in one until you're already there. That night, back at the camp, the rest of the group gathered around a crackling fire. Laughter and stories filled the air. But somehow, Ethan and I found ourselves in a quieter conversation off to the side. He told me about growing up near the coast, about losing his mother when he was young, and about learning that life doesn't always offer neat closure. You just take what it gives you, he said, and you make peace with it. I found myself opening up, too. I told him about Robert, about his terrible singing voice, and the small, off-key laugh he had that I missed so much. Ethan chuckled softly. Sounds like the kind of love most people spend a lifetime looking for. I looked into the fire, watching the flames dance between us, and when it's gone, his voice softened. Then you wait. You wait for the day that something, or someone, reminds you it's still possible to feel. The following days unfolded in a gentle rhythm that neither of us questioned. We shared morning tea before the sunrise drives. We talked about the stars after dinner. We learned to read each other's silences. There was never anything inappropriate between us, not a single misplaced word or touch. But there was something undeniably powerful. It was the kind of connection that doesn't need to ask for permission to exist. On the fifth evening, a sudden storm swept across the savannah. The rain came down in sheets, forcing everyone to stay indoors. I sat inside my tent, listening to the thunder roll across the plains, when a soft knock came at the entrance. Mrs. Harper. Ethan's voice carried through the sound of the rain. I brought some hot tea. Thought you might like some company. I hesitated for just a moment. I took a breath. Come in. He entered, shaking the rain from his jacket and smiling apologetically. The single lamplight made the air inside the tent glow a warm amber. We sat across from each other, steam curling up from our cups. It's strange, I said quietly, how a storm like this can make you feel less alone. Ethan nodded. Maybe because it reminds us that everything passes, even the heavy things. There was a pause, a comfortable silence. I looked at him, really looked at him, and for the first time in 2 long years, I didn't feel like a widow. I felt like a woman, alive, seen, trembling on the edge of something I didn't have a name for. I don't know what this is, I whispered, half to myself. Ethan met my gaze, his own eyes steady and clear. It doesn't need a name. Evelyn, he said softly. Not every connection needs to fit into a box. Sometimes, it's enough just to feel it. The space between us filled with a quiet, electric stillness. It wasn't desire, not in the way most people think of it. It was something deeper, the kind of tension that asks for nothing, but changes everything. He reached across the small table, his hand resting gently over mine. It wasn't a demanding gesture, just present. The warmth of his skin lingered. A silent secret I knew I would keep. When I returned home to Oregon a week later, my daughter noticed the difference immediately. We were having coffee in my kitchen. You look lighter, Mom, she said, studying my face. Your eyes are sparkling. I just smiled. That night, I wrote in my journal. It wasn't love in the way the world defines it. It was a meeting of 2 souls who simply recognized something in each other. The courage to begin again. A few months later, an email popped up in my inbox. The subject line was a hello from Kenya. It read, I hope you kept the scarf I gave you. It's getting cold here. I'm starting my own travel company, inspired by people like you who remind me that life doesn't end at our comfort zones. When it's ready, I'd love to send you an invitation, not as your guide, but as a friend. Ethan, I smiled through tears I didn't expect to shed. Because sometimes, the most beautiful stories aren't about romance or finding a forever. They're about the moments that awaken us, the moments that remind us that no matter our age, life can still find a way to whisper, you're not done yet. So, if you've ever believed it's too late to feel something new, to be truly seen again, or to open your heart just a little, remember this. A sunset doesn't mean the light is gone for good. It only means another beginning is waiting, just beyond the horizon,